morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to our Sunday morning Tanya class. We are learning now. We finally finished chapters 27 last week, and we are now going to begin chapter 28. In chapter 27, 26 and 27, the Alter Rebbe is dealing with the issue of depression. And he lays out a fundamental truth that in order to serve God and to overpower your evil inclination, you must be always in an uplifted mood, happy, joyous, because there's no other way to conquer and overpower the negative temptations and the negative inclinations that are always tugging at us and trying to sway us and take us away from the path of God and so on and so forth. So you always have to be happy. And in fact it says, Yivdu es Hashem b'simcha, you have to serve God with joy. The problem is that many people are not always joyous, and for good reason. Whether it's because life is not treating them well, either it's illness in the family, they don't have any good nachas from their children, or they don't have parnasa, a good livelihood. There's all kinds of reasons why that would bring us down and make us unhappy and depressed and sad and so on. So in chapter 26, the Alter Rebbe covered that and explained why that should not cause a person to be unhappy. And of course I won't get into it again. We learned in the past. That's 26. Then he talked about, in the end of 26, about someone who's unhappy, not because he's physically not doing well, but because he's spiritually not doing well. He's morally deficient, which of course can be a reason for sadness and depression and being unhappy with yourself and so on. So there too, the Alter Rebbe said that generally speaking, one should not let that bring him down. There are very specific times when a person should contemplate that and become bitter over those things, but it's a very, very seldom. Most of the time, you shouldn't let that bring you down. You can't allow that to govern your day and to take you over. Yes, there are times when you should contemplate your moral failings, but it's not something you should do all the time, by no means. Therefore, most of the time you should be in a happy mood. Chapter 27, Alter Rebbe discussed if someone, someone who's plagued by the fact that he's constantly being bombarded with negative thoughts, with temptation, thoughts that go into his mind, and it frustrates him. He's very upset about it. What do you like? Even if he doesn't succumb to them. But the fact that he even wants to and has the temptation to do things that are unholy and ungodly and un-Jewish and unhuman even. Not unhuman, but not very self-centered and so on. That could bring a person down. So there too, the Alter Rebbe said, not only should it not bring you down, but you should see it as an opportunity to do another mitzvah, which is to overcome that. And therefore be happy, not sad. And then he tells us, the rest of 27, he explains that in truth, that is actually the human condition. That's the human condition, that you're going to have thoughts that enter your mind. The key is, what you have to make sure to do is not to allow them to harbor and to find, to allow them to stay in your mind. You have to right away expel them from your mind and divert your attention from them, and within that way you're doing a mitzvah. So on the contrary. Now, the reason that you're getting these thoughts is because you're not a tzaddik. You're not a righteous. You're not a holy, righteous person. Only the holy and righteous are beyond that. But a regular person, the Beinoni, is certainly not beyond that. And don't expect that you shouldn't have such thoughts that enter your mind. Instead, every time you subdue those thoughts, every time you subdue the negative, you divert your attention, you chase it out of your mind, and so on and so forth. You're getting rid of the evil of this world, and you're giving God a tremendous amount of pleasure, and that's why he created us, to do this constantly, to be in this tug of war all the time, till we die, and always overcome it. And when we do, he has tremendous pleasure. That was chapter 27. In 28, he's going to deal with another problem that can bring a person down. And that is, till now, the Alter Rebbe was talking about a person, a Beinoni, a regular person who does have temptation, who's plagued with these thoughts that enter his mind, that do these temptations, and But that usually it happens not when you're davening, when you're learning, when you're just, going about your business. Okay, so then you could see it as an opportunity to divert it. Hashem is giving you an opportunity to do a mitzvah. But imagine a person is trying to daven well. A person trying to learn. And he's trying to concentrate on the Talmud, on the piece of Talmud, or a page of Tanya, or whatever, on the Chumash, or whatever you're learning. And as you're learning, or as you're davening, these thoughts start entering your mind. So so you could say, because God's giving you an opportunity. God's giving you an opportunity to push it out of your mind. That's very nice. But I'm trying to daven. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to concentrate. It's disturbing my ability to do what I'm supposed to do right now. You're telling me that's a good idea. It's nice that you have an opportunity to push these thoughts out of your mind and do a mitzvah and so on. But there's certain times that you don't want to be bothered with these thoughts. You want to be able to concentrate on your davening, on your learning, on what you're doing, on mitzvah, whatever it may be. And the interesting thing is that for many people, when do these thoughts, these negative, tempting thoughts enter your mind? Specifically when you're davening, specifically when you're trying to do the right thing, specifically when you're learning. So this is already a problem. Now imagine you take your davening very seriously, and your davening is a very serious part of your day, and you prepare yourself for davening. And davening in the Hasidic understanding is a very serious matter. You prepare for davening, you contemplate the greatness of God, and try to get closer to God, to develop a love for Hashem through understanding His greatness. And that brings you into the atmosphere of the davening, which is the time when you converse with Hashem and you connect with Him and you love Him and so on. And suddenly your mind is bombarded with thoughts that are alien and very unclean, unhealthy. And very, very the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. So what are you going to tell me, to see it as an opportunity? Come to me in an hour, come to me in 2 hours, I'll see it then as an opportunity. But right now I want to daven. I don't want to be bothered with these things. So imagine someone that takes davening very serious, or learning very serious, and he's unable to concentrate. He can't get the davening, he can't get into it because of it. It just constantly bothers him. So there's no reason to be happy about that. On the contrary, that can bring you down. But it's worse. What brings him down is another aspect. It shows that your davening is not real. If you were really into the thinking about the higher things and loftier things, God and His greatness and so on, where would these thoughts enter you from? You're preoccupied with higher things. It means that you're not really there. If you were really involved in your davening, these things wouldn't happen. Your mind can't be in two places at the same time. Your soul can't be in two places at the same time. If your soul is entirely involved in davening, how is your soul now suddenly have a negative temptation all of a sudden that enters your mind? Is your soul here or is your soul there? You understand what I'm saying? The thoughts come from the soul. So if your soul is entirely involved in higher pursuits right now, in davening, in the greatness of Hashem, that's where your soul is involved. Where would your soul suddenly have a temptation for something that's very the opposite of that? It means your soul is not into the davening properly. So this begins to eat up at this Jew, who feels that he thinks, he wants to very much be in the right thing, especially when he's davening and he's learning, doing right. Suddenly he realizes his soul is altogether somewhere else. So I'm not even a real person. Even my davening is not either real. So this is a source of worry for such a Jew. The Alter Rebbe in chapter 28 deals with this, but it deals with it also on the psychological level. You'll see. chapter 28, page 121. Even if there occur to him lustful imaginations or other extraneous thoughts during divine service, on Torah or in devout prayer, while you're learning or while you're davening, so suddenly you have lustful imaginations. Could you imagine such a thing? And it happens. So he must not let his heart dwell on them, but must immediately avert his mind from them. You see, one can think that why is Hashem making these thoughts enter his mind at that very moment when he's davening? To send him a message. What's the message? You're good for nothing. Even though while you're davening and you think you're on a higher level, these thoughts come in. In other words, it's a reminder that you're really not the way you should be. That you think your soul is into higher things, and look where you really are. And why would Hashem want to remind you that while you're davening? Because that's when it becomes crystal clear that you're not really where you need to be. In order to take this to heart and to feel a certain contrition in your own heart that, hey, I need to really fix myself. So this Jew can think that maybe I should deal with this thought. In other words, maybe it should bring me down, because that's the message here, that I'm not the way I should be, and I should be contrite about it and do tshuva and repent because of it. Right? Mm-hmm. So the Alter Rebbe says, no, don't let it get into it. Don't look at the words. He must not let his heart dwell on them, but must immediately avert his mind from them. Hashem is not sending you any message. It's not true. He's not trying to bring you down. On the contrary, he's not trying to remind you that you're not good and therefore you should be contrite and be brokenhearted and do tshuva. No, that's not what's going on over here. Then he continues, nor should he be foolish. This is an interesting thing that he's going to say. Nor should he be foolish by attempting to sublimate the midos of the extraneous thoughts as is known. What he's saying over here is, let's say you have a lustful imagination while you're saying the Shema. You're into the Shema, Hashem Echad, you're really into... Suddenly you have a lustful imagination. It's a contradiction of terms, right? So what did the Rebbe say? The Rebbe says, a person can think, well, let's analyze this. Where is this thought coming from? You suddenly feel a certain attraction to some other person. Where does that come from? It comes from you have like a passionate desire in your heart for something unhealthy, immoral. So it comes from you have a misplaced love, let's say, right? So it could be the person can say to himself, you know what? Maybe my power of attraction and my love in my heart is no good. And I have to start correcting that attribute of love. It's misplaced. I have to take it in the right direction. I have to deal with this, right? So he can think to himself that this negative thought, this bad thought that entered my mind, maybe I shouldn't run away from it. I should get a hold of it and transform it and fix it and try to heal my passionate feeling of my heart and my attractions, that they should be to the right place. In other words, to elevate and to heal that very thought, to extract because in every thought in everything in this world, even thoughts, there's a godly spark. So there's a godly spark in a place that's no good. So maybe it's time for me to fix my attractions and my thoughts, my which is the source of this lustful imagination, and fix my chesed, right? This is coming from my chesed, my love of my heart. But it's not in the right place. It should go here. It's going there. So this is the time to maybe get into those thoughts and get into that, extract the positive and get rid of the negative and start dealing with and elevating those negative thoughts. Alter Rebbe says, don't be stupid, don't be foolish to think that that's what your job is, when these thoughts enter your mind. Let's read it in his words. Nor should he be foolish by attempting to sublimate the midos, those character traits of the extraneous thought. Or, for example, if while you're davening, a negative thought comes in, a hateful thought to someone else that did something wrong to you, and you're really angry at him. Where does that come from? That comes from gvura, from your judgment, from your judging element within you, right? Which is your basically the attribute of din, of judgment, of gvura, of severity, and so on. So you may think, I should now try to extract the good of that thought, to get rid of the extraneous, the negative, and elevate, think about how my judgment should be not towards the negative of someone else, but towards maybe my own negative. I should judge myself, to try to elevate those, to fix my own attributes. In other words, those thoughts, you should dwell on them, to try to separate the good from the bad. Alter Rebbe says no. Don't try to elevate and sublimate the midas of the extraneous thought as is known. For such things were meant only for tzaddikim, for the holy righteous. They can do that. Now, you ask, but tzaddikim don't have extraneous thoughts. They don't have lustful imagination. They don't have all of these things. So how can they do that? So he says, in whom extraneous thoughts do not occur of their own making, but those of others. A tzaddik never has a thought, a passion, a temptation for something ungodly. It doesn't have it. Just like, do you have a temptation when you're 50 to play with marbles on the floor? You have such temptation? No, it's not that you won't give in. It doesn't even enter your mind to have a temptation like that. The tzaddik doesn't have a temptation for such things. So imagine you have suddenly a temptation for marbles, to play with marbles on the floor, or with Lego. Where's that coming from? You ask yourself, this can't be mine. This is not mine. It's got to be someone else's. This is not my thought. It doesn't come from within my soul. Same thing when a tzaddik has a thought that enters his mind. It's not his. That's already a thought that's going into the tzaddik said from someone else, so that the tzaddik should elevate it, should deal with it. But not you. You're not a tzaddik. You just push the thought out of your mind and don't start dealing with it. Look in the Alter Rebbe's words. We'll read that again. For such things are meant only for tzaddikim, in whom extraneous thoughts do not occur of their own making, but those of others. But as for him, whose extraneous thoughts is his own, those come from your negative soul, from your soul, from the aspect of evil that is in the left part of his heart, how can he raise it up when he himself is bound below? Those are your thoughts. How are you going to elevate it? You're in the pits. Get out of the pit. Don't try to deal with it. So you can't do that. Nevertheless, so then you may say, okay, then I'm in trouble. I'm in bad shape. I'm davening and these things don't stop bothering. So he says, nevertheless, he must not be downcast at heart and feel dejected and despicable during divine service, which should be with great joy. You must stay joyous. You must have a joyous feeling, and so on and so forth. So, but how do you deal with this? It's almost like a sign that you're in the pits, as he just said. You're down below. So why should I be happy about that? How could I be happy about that? Yeah, but the Alter Rebbe says, be happy. Why? How could you? He says a very interesting thing now. On the contrary, he says, he should draw fresh strength and intensity and intensify his effort with all his power to concentrate on the prayer with increased joy and gladness. What happens? You're davening, you're trying to concentrate on the right thing. You're trying to be involved in like Jews that come to Rosh Hashanah to shul. Let's talk about that, yeah? You want to daven, you want to have a moment of feeling. You get in, you open the machzor, you're starting to read, you're starting to sing, and suddenly you're distracted all day. You just don't stop being distracted by things going around you that come into your mind. So it's frustrating. So what happens? Alter Rebbe says, on the contrary, then when these thoughts get in, intensify your effort in davening and overpower those thoughts. Hold on. Let's read it again. On the contrary, he should draw fresh strength and intensify his effort with all his power to concentrate on the prayer with increased joy and gladness, in the realization that the foreign thought that had invaded his heart comes from the klipa in the left part, which in the case of the Beinoni, the regular person, wages war with the divine soul within him. For it is known that the way of combatants, as of wrestlers, is that when one is gaining the upper hand, the other likewise strives to prevail with all the resources of his strength. Therefore, when the divine soul exerts itself and summons its strength for prayer, the klipa also gathers strength at such time to confuse her and topple her by means of foreign thought and of its own, of a foreign thought of its own. What's happening over here is you're worried. If foreign thought is entering me, it means I'm not davening properly. The Alter Rebbe is on the contrary. This means you're davening very well. And there's a battle going in within you between your right and left side. So when the left side, the negative side, sees the right side gaining strength, is doing very well in, for example, in this case, the davening. So it also feels it must muster up greater strength to distract you, like two people are wrestling, yeah? When one is gaining the upper hand, the other one has to now muster up strength to knock him down, right? So that's what's happening. When a Yid is davening and he's really getting into it, the negative, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination feels, wait a minute, I can't let this happen. He's really doing well and is getting closer to God. Let me knock him down. So it starts throwing thoughts into your head to distract you. On the contrary, that's a sign that your davening is powerful. And that's why this is happening. Your enemy is mustering up the strength to bring you down, because you're up, not because you're down. It's a sign that you're up, it's not a sign that you're down. Till now you thought that you're depressed because, who am I? I'm no good, right? I have all these negative thoughts. It's a sign that I'm down in the dumps. On the contrary, the Rebbe says, you're not down in the dumps. You're high up, and that's why the other side is trying to muster up strength to bring you down.
Interesting concept. That's a very interesting concept. Yeah.
You understand what he's saying over here?
Yeah, I feel better.
Understand what he's saying over here? No, but you have to get them out of your head as soon as they get in. Now here's an interesting idea. The Alter Rebbe is now going to deal with an interesting point. Most people think, why is this person perturbed by these negative thoughts that enter his mind while he's sitting on shul by Kol Nidre and he's trying to daven and suddenly he's distracted by this negative thought and that negative thought and so on? Why is that a sign that why is he frustrated by that? I said before, I explained it, because that seems to be an indication. Your soul can't be in two places at the same time. If your soul is entirely involved in loving Hashem by davening on Yom Kippur, why would your soul all of a sudden have a feeling for a negative? Is your soul here or is it here? Now that problem didn't go away yet. The Alter Rebbe just said that it's like the Yetzer Hara is trying to bring him down because it's really high. The problem is, if your soul is high, how is it? Where does that thought come from? Don't the thoughts come from your soul? Who's thinking? Who's desiring? Who has the temptation? Your soul. You. Who you? Who are you? You're your soul. So how can your soul at the same time be passionately excited about God during davening, at the same time be passionate and have temptations for alien and lustful things? It's a contradiction of terms, right? So it means you're not really here. If you're still here, it means you're not really here. Alter Rebbe is going to say an interesting thing. Based on everything he said till now, how many souls do we have? 2 souls. We have 2 souls. It's not just one soul with a good inclination and a negative inclination that's trying to push thoughts into this soul. The thoughts come from the soul. But how many souls do we have? 2. And those 2 souls are full personas. It's 2 separate personas. Not what I mean separate. One is, they're intermingled because the godly soul is enclosed in the human soul. But they're two full-fledged personalities. In other words, the godly soul has... The godly soul, how do you do that? What do you do? Yeah. Sorry about that. The godly... What just happened? Okay. The godly soul has an intellectual powers. It has emotional faculty. It has intellect, emotions. The human soul also has intellectual and emotions. These are two separate souls. So now let's understand this. Your godly soul is passionate about davening. He's loving Hashem. And he's involved in heaven. And suddenly you have a negative thought comes in. Where's that negative thought coming from? The same godly soul? No, it's coming from the human soul. It's two souls within your body. So the fact that you have a negative thought that enters your mind from your human soul, does that mean your godly soul is not in the right place? It absolutely doesn't mean that. Your godly soul could be 100% passionate in the right place, and into your mind is the other soul is sending a thought into your mind to distract you from the thoughts of the godly soul. So it's not bluff. On the contrary, these two souls are alive and well. The godly soul is trying with all his power and might to daven, learn, do the right thing. And there's a distraction not from the godly soul. If the same soul wasn't sending two opposite messages into your mind, that would be a contradiction of terms. That would be a problem. It wouldn't make sense. Then you would have reason to be worried. Am I here or am I there? It can't be both true. But these are two souls. The godly soul is davening well. The negative soul sees the godly soul gaining the upper hand. It sends right away a thought into your mind to bring the godly soul down distracted. So the Alter Rebbe is saying, don't be depressed. What are you depressed? What is the reason you're depressed? That you have another soul? That's your condition. That's the human condition. There's nothing you can do about that. That's the way you were created. That it's sending in a negative thought. On the contrary, let your godly soul become even stronger and shut out that thought from the negative soul, and get rid of it. Let's see in the Alter Rebbe's words. This refutes the error commonly held by people who mistakenly deduce from the occurrence of the foreign thought that this proves their prayer to be worthless. For if one prayed as is fitting and proper, no foreign thoughts would have occurred to him, because if your soul is in the heaven, it's not on earth at the same time. What they say would be true if there were only one single soul, the same that prays as well as thinks and fancies the foreign thoughts. Then you would have said, then you would be right. This would be a contradiction. This would be a problem. But as we don't have only one soul. The real truth, however, is that there are two souls, waging war one against the other in the person's mind, each one wishing and desiring to rule over him and pervade his mind exclusively. Thus, all thoughts of Torah and the fear of heaven come from the divine soul, while all the mundane matters come from the animal soul, except that the divine soul is enclosed in it. The divine soul and the human soul are not in two different places. They're in one body. They're enclosed in it. Therefore, this tug of war can happen all the time. Sorry about that. If to somehow figure out how to get rid of those phone calls as they come in. This is like the example of a person praying with devotion. While facing him, there stands a wicked heathen who chats and speaks to him in order to confuse him. That's exactly what's going on. It's as if someone you're davening, and your guy is so heathen is coming and distracting you. Your human soul, your animal soul, is that heathen. That's what's happening. So it's not that you're a faker, you're a hypocrite, you're in two places. There's two personas in you. There's two souls in you. The question now begins: what about people that do only have one soul? A person that doesn't have one soul. The nations of the world. So when they're davening and suddenly a negative thought comes into their mind, what does that say? What does that mean?
And it's really negative because they don't have the other
That's
soul
right.
to combat it.
That means that it's not real. And the truth is, when you have only one soul, and that soul is davening or praying to God, and suddenly negative thoughts enter them, it means the davening is not real. It means that they're not really involved. You can't be involved in. If the same soul can't send you. If you're really up there, you wouldn't have a thought that comes from down here. And the truth is as follows. I don't know if this is a good example, but a non-Jew who really works on themselves, and they become completely devoted to higher pursuits, to higher godly things, they probably don't have negative thoughts during that time. In other words, if your soul has elevated itself to a higher place for real, you wouldn't have these negative thoughts. Give me an example of a Gentile who has really, really reached a higher level of divine connection. You know someone in history?
Well, you think that the Pope is that way, but
I don't know. Let's not talk about the Pope.
no, I don't
Let's
know.
not talk about
But you said a non-Jew. I just don't
No, I know, I
can think
understand.
of the Pope.
I don't know. I can't.
Sure.
I'm not going to theorize because I don't know. But let's say, and I'm not saying any. And so, but let's say a person like Mother Teresa.
Yeah,
Say that she was a good woman. She was a good person. She was involved in helping him. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know her. I don't know anything about her. I know a little bit, what I read, what I heard, just like you. But a person that is really I don't know if she's in this category, but someone that's it's a higher level person among from a Gentile higher level person. Reached a different plane. He's reached a different plane. He's worked at himself and transformed himself. I'm not sure that he or she would still have these thoughts bother them during their higher pursuits. And if it did, it would be a problem. It would mean that they're really not on the higher level.
Along the way, I'm sure they encounter it, but they learn to refine themselves.
So if they've refined themselves, if they're really up, they're not down. There wouldn't be anything coming. These thoughts wouldn't happen to them. I don't know them. I can't say yes. I don't know them, so I don't know. Yeah. I suspect that they're not so holy as people think, but let's say they are. We don't have to give a name. The concept. If there's a person who's totally dedicated to davening, like a real davening, he's completely involved, he wouldn't have these thoughts. Those thoughts wouldn't come in. The reason that this Beinoni can have such thoughts is it's not coming from the soul that's davening, it's coming from the other soul. But if you only have one soul, and that soul is truly davening, it wouldn't happen. Those thoughts wouldn't enter. It's true, it wouldn't enter. And if it did, it means you're not really davening. Now the truth is, a true chassid, a true Jew, who really his whole involvement in life is higher things, he probably also reaches a level where he's not bothered by real gross thoughts. A person that already, there are people that were on a higher level, that they're not dealing with these gross thoughts. What I think the Alter Rebbe is talking about is more people like regular people that haven't reached that level, but they're when they daven, they really get into it. Their soul gets into it. They're not high-level people, but when they daven, they get into it. So these people, suddenly negative thoughts go in. It bothers them. Well, it means I'm not davening for real. No, the Alter Rebbe is saying it's not true. You're davening for real. Your soul is there. These negative stuff are coming from the other soul. And that's the common person. Most people are like that. They don't reach some level that there's no more. But if you only had one soul, and it really was davening, it probably wouldn't be bothered by negative thoughts. And if it is, he's not really davening, he's not there. You understand what he's saying? Where were we?
Surely the thing to do
In such a case would be if you're davening and a heathen is standing in front of you, distracting you, what would you do? Surely the thing to do in such a case would be not to answer him, good or evil. Don't start dealing with him, but rather to pretend to be deaf without hearing and to comply with the verse, answer not a fool according to his folly. Don't deal with him, lest thou become like him, also be like unto him. Similarly, he must answer nothing, nor engage in any argument and counter-argument with the foreign thought that the human soul is sending into your mind. For he who wrestles with a filthy person is bound to become soiled himself. When you start wrestling with someone that just came out of the mud, you're going to be muddy. You're going to end up with that. So don't wrestle with the thought, just shut him out. Rather should he adopt the attitude as if he neither knows nor hears the thoughts that have befallen. He must remove them from his mind and strengthen still more the power of his concentration. However, if he finds it hard to dismiss them from his mind, because they distract his mind with great intensity, then he should humble his spirit before God and supplicate him, beg by Hashem, in his thought, to have compassion upon him in his abundant mercies, as a father who takes pity on his children who stem from his brain. So may the Lord have pity on his soul, which is derived from him, from Hashem, because our soul is a part of Hashem above, as we learned, who is blessed, and deliver it from the turbulent waters, so to say, which are his negative thoughts. For his sake, he will do it, for verily his people is part of the Lord. In other words, if you see that these distractive thoughts just don't stop, and it's just continuous, you have to humble your spirit and ask Hashem for mercy to take care of this neshama, that it should be free of this. And maybe Hashem will answer your prayer. Because at the end of the day, the neshama is part of Hashem. It's a child of Hashem, so Hashem will take pity on it. But sometimes you need Hashem's assistance. Okay, so you ask for Hashem's assistance, but don't deal with it. Don't let it bring you down. Because this is only a sign that you're really, really doing a good job davening. It's the other way around. It's not because you're down. It means you're up. And that's why the human soul is trying to bring you down. If it persists, it doesn't stop, okay, so you have to, that you have to ask Hashem's assistance and pity and mercy. I'm going to stop here. I have a bar mitzvah to go to, so we'll elaborate a little more on this chapter next week, and we'll move on to chapter 20.
Very good. It was a good one.
Have a good day, everyone watching.